I've gotten on the treadmill in my life, and I thought to myself, I'm gonna skip prayer these days, but that's okay because it's gonna get us to where we need to get, and then at that point, we'll be good to go. We'll get back in prayer. What ends up happening is that people find themselves like a mile wide and an inch deep. I do believe that Gen Z is asking themselves really important questions, which is, okay, I've done all the things. I've earned all the credentials. I've received all the praise, but yet I still feel a certain degree of lack.
Hello, my name is Liam Kelly and I'm the editor-in-chief of The Observer. I'm excited to share with you today the first edition of our new video series, Observer Conversations, in which I'll be interviewing leaders on campus, giving them the opportunity to share their stories and messages to the broader Tri-Campus community. Our first guest today is Father Pete McCormick, Holy Cross priest and Assistant Vice President for Campus Ministry. McCormick, known affectionately by most as Father Pete, has headed campus ministry since 2015 and serves as the chaplain of the men's basketball team. Father Pete can often be seen riding his bike around campus, and as anyone who's attended a Notre Dame football game will know, is a fan favorite of students. Today, Father Pete sits down with The Observer to discuss what motivates him, how he connects with students, and how we can grow the faith at Notre Dame. Father Pete, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Appreciate you being here today. You know, most students have probably met you. You're one of the biggest figures on campus, one of the biggest personalities on campus. I think most people have met you know you always say hi to everybody. What should people know about you that they don't already know?
Yeah, I would say that most importantly, I love being a priest, really, above all else. That, when I thought about my own vocation, I discerned it long and hard. And to be able to share that with others, and when we think about that understanding of a priest, to be a bridge builder, to be a connector with people to God, it's what I love doing. And so sometimes people will say to me, like, well, I know you're so busy, but I'm like, yeah, but that's what I want to be busy about. So Don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to kind of let me know if there's a way that I can help, because that's what I want to do. It's an extension of my priesthood.
Tell us a bit more about that decision to join the priesthood, coming out of college. What was it that drew you to that, and kind of how did your faith develop?
Yeah, it was a big leap for me because it wasn't a part of my plan. My thought was that I was going to stay in my hometown of Grand Rapids, might end up being a high school teacher and basketball coach. That was kind of the mentality that I was going with. And so starting in high school, I started to think about the priesthood, and I really didn't know what to do with that because it was so unaligned with my plan. Ultimately, I couldn't find peace in any of those other directions. And so, frankly, at a point of like, okay, Lord, I got no other options than to pursue this thing that's been on my heart for so long. And that moment that I said yes to God, that moment that I kind of gave up my own particular focus, because frankly, it was too small, was the moment I encountered real peace. I was like, all right, Lord, just lead me, because my imagination clearly isn't big enough for what you want to do with my life. And so I'm just going to trust. And that was a big step because it requires a whole heck of a lot of vulnerability. It means leaving your comfort zone. It means not necessarily knowing what the future holds. But that really, I think, is what we're all invited to consider in our own lives too.
Obviously, you serve as director of campus ministry here. Looking at kind of young people today, specifically young people at Notre Dame, what do you think the greatest challenge is that they face at the moment? And how can the church be the answer to that?
Yeah, what a great question. The worry that I have for campus is not our hearts big enough, or do we have great minds? I frankly think that the worry is that people are in such a hurry to have life all figured out. And so we end up like signing up for 10 clubs and then also making sure that we've got a couple internship opportunities in addition to taking 18 credits. And what ends up happening is that people find themselves like a mile wide and an inch deep. And it's through no fault of anyone's. People are trying to do the right thing. And it feels like, well, to step back at all and reflect actually might mean that I might not be able to have the opportunity that I would really love later in my life. So where I think that the church has an opportunity to help here is to once again emphasize the importance of stepping back in contemplation and in prayer. We have to go back to the source. The same, I lived this. I was running around trying to find all these things. But when you step back and you reflect, you ask yourself, what is my purpose? Who is God? How is it that God knows me and loves me? Then that begins to direct what we do, what we don't do, what we say, what we don't say, what we prioritize, what we don't prioritize. So to me, it's not a lack in heart, mind, capacity, skill set, any of those things. It's just a matter of what do we focus ourselves on, and how can we authentically, in a meaningful way, kind of be faithful to that.
Right. How do you, if I can ask, how do you try to balance that in your own life? Obviously, you have many different roles on campus: priest, director of campus ministry. You're the chaplain of the men's basketball team, podcaster, DJ. How do you find the time to balance these roles and, like you said, really deeply commit to all of them, which I think anybody who's met you would attest that you do.
Yeah. Look, I'm going to say straight up to you, I have failed in this multiple times. And so the first thing I would say is demonstrating a certain degree of resiliency of I'm going to try again. Because I have gotten on the treadmill in my life. And I thought to myself, I'm going to skip prayer these days, but that's okay because it's going to get us to where we need to get. And then at that point, we'll be good to go. We'll get back in prayer. And then invariably the next mountain arrives. And you got to climb that one. And then before you know it, it's not been 3 days since you've prayed last. It's a month in which you've earnestly spent some time in prayer. So first, you're going to fail a lot, and that's okay. But don't think to yourself, oh my gosh, I'm an abject failure. I'm a bad Catholic. I'm a bad person of faith because I haven't prayed or spent the time. No, you just got to say, no, this is a value, and I'm going to continue to pursue it. Maybe I'm going to start with 2 minutes, and then I'm going to get up to 10, and then I'm going to get up to 20, whatever the case might be. But to me, what ultimately I have found is that when I pray, I'm a better, more focused, more compassionate person. And I think the world needs that. So to me, that's really what it is. It's not a matter of executing on this perfectly, because you won't. And people who look for that, they're just going to end up frustrated. But take it from me, you just got to keep trying and be honest when it doesn't work out, but trust that the Lord doesn't give up on us. The Lord's not well, listen, you stopped praying for me, you didn't hit me back for a whole month, guess we're done. Nope. Right. Every moment, this moment is a new opportunity. And so let's seize that.
Kind of looking at our generation, I think a lot of people would say, at least in recent years, that there's been a bit of a shift, back towards religion, to Catholicism. Polling indicates that. Religiosity is up among Gen Z, and nationally is kind of stabilized. Is that something that you've noticed? Being involved with young people here on campus, is that something you've noticed in maybe the past 10 years? And if so, what do you think's driving that?
Yeah, I would say it is something that I've noticed. What do I think is driving it is a curious question, and frankly, I wouldn't even say 10 years. I'd probably say the past 3, 4, really kind of coming out of COVID is the way I'd frame it. And what I look at in particular is I do believe that Gen Z is asking themselves really important questions, which is, okay, I've done all the things. I've earned all the credentials. I've received all the praise, but yet I still feel a certain degree of lack. I've gotten all the things that I thought society had told me that I need to get in order to be happy, to feel fulfilled, to have purpose. And it still feels like there's something missing, which is the age-old line that St. Augustine so beautifully attested to. Our hearts are restless until they rest in you, O Lord. Right. And so I think people are beginning to take a look at faith. And I want to take this as a moment. I entered the seminary in 2000. And in 2001, the clergy abuse crisis emerged. And I watched as all the trust and all of the desire to communally come to Christ just dropped away because people were so dispirited by the way the church had behaved, lack of transparency and failure to lead by many of the clergy at that particular time. So what do I say now? This is a moment. Christ is ever faithful, But if we are to continue this focus, we must not think necessarily about, oh, the Catholic Church is so great, or we have to ask ourselves, how is it that I'm committing my life more and more to Jesus Christ every day? That's what this has to be about. The fruit of the work that will come will be the result of our discipleship. It can't be in a program. It can't be sheerly in numbers. It can't be in what we build. It has to be in Jesus. And we just trust that the fruit will flow forth from there, because I saw how, like that, the light went out. And it took years and years. In the church, I'm so proud of her, because we've had to work through reforms and thinking differently about how we lead and make sure that there's utter transparency. We have to make sure that we're focused on the gospel. Like, that's what this has to be about. So I do believe this is a moment, but I just want to offer it as a cautionary tale in my experience from 2001, because if we're not careful, we'll end up behaving in a way that any other business does when they're at a high water mark. But that's not what we're called to be as church. We're called to deepen our reliance on Jesus, to rely upon the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, and to root ourselves in that wholly and entirely.
What do you think the role of the university is in kind of, I guess, maintaining the faith on campus and kind of, making it resilient, as you said, so that, yes, maybe there's a moment now, but how do you make this sustainable? How can the university really do that, and to what extent should it actively do that?
Yeah, and this is where I'm so proud of who we are as a Catholic university. We rightly look to Mary as an example. Mary, who was faithful in the moment of the Annunciation. Angel Gabriel did not give her a whole heck of a lot of details, but she said yes. She trusted in God's plan. She trusted that the Lord would be faithful. And then giving birth to Jesus and raising him and following him all the way to the footsteps of the cross. She continued to allow her life to be one that was dedicated to Jesus. And I think, frankly, that's what our call has been and will always be. Does it take different shapes and varieties and all types of people? You bet, which is what makes it amazing. And so to me, the enterprise, the mission of Notre Dame is ever new. It's always affording us the chance with every year, with every academic year, to step back and ask ourselves, all right, what does the gospel demand of us today? That perhaps 10 years ago it didn't. But that's what keeps it fresh, and that's what keeps our focus sharp.
Right. And you've been at Notre Dame now for, I think, about 20 years, if that's right.
Crazy. Just crazy.
What drew you here, originally? I mean, as a Catholic school, you want to be a priest, obviously. There's that obvious element to it. But I guess more specifically, what's kept you here, and what still keeps you here? Oh,
man. So Notre Dame was an absolute gift to me. I didn't know really where Notre Dame was. When I entered the seminary, I called it the seminary at Notre Dame. And so when I was beginning to explore the Congregation of Holy Cross, I knew that South Bend was only like 2 hours away from Grand Rapids. So it was absolute providence that I got here. My mom said something to me maybe a couple of years while I was in the seminary and beyond, but she said, Notre Dame has given to you what me and your father could not. And they were not bad parents. In fact, they were really, really good parents. But they saw something come alive in me here at Notre Dame and in my own vocation. And what I continue to desire, what gives me the greatest joy, is hoping to be able to be some small part of that for others. And that's what I get to see. That's what I love. Right. That people come here when they're 18 and like, who they are when they're 18 is very different from who they are when they're 22. And if they're coming in for grad school, like what they encounter and the research that they do, like it allows people to come to a fuller understanding of who they are and how they might be able to contribute to the great problems of the world. And what an awesome thing. So that's what, there's a structure to Notre Dame. You always know that you're going to start the year and then you're going to go to fall break, then you do Christmas break, spring break, Easter, end of year. Okay. But it's the in-between there. The things that happen, which make it unique each and every year, which make it utterly fascinating.
Right. One unique thing I noticed about your resume is that you have an executive MBA from Mendoza.
Correct.
Most people I think wouldn't expect a priest to have an MBA. How do you make use of that degree, and kind of how has that influenced your work as director of campus ministry?
So you are not alone in asking this question. So my classmates were like, "So you're a priest? Why are you here?" What I would say to them is look, at campus ministry has an extensive budget, and I've got a staff of over 40.
Yeah.
What else would you recommend? The Congregation of Holy Cross has this long history of making sure that we send our guys out to have and earn great degrees that they can then carry back with them here to Notre Dame. So whether that be in a situation in the classroom or whether that be as an administrator, we want our religious to make sure that they have the best education possible so that it might drive most effectively the mission. So to me, that was just a continuation, frankly, of the culture that is Holy Cross. Mm-hmm. To go and earn the executive MBA here at the university was a great opportunity for me. And what I really hope to be able to do is take those efficiencies that are shared in Mendoza and then apply them in campus ministry in a mission ministry-based context.
Right. One of the other many hats you wear on campus is chaplain of the men's basketball team.
Yes, sir.
How did that come about that you became chaplain, and how has that influenced you? I'm aware you're a big basketball fan, and I know you love to play basketball.
Yep.
How has that experience been? Getting to serve the team in that manner.
I love it. So a little bit of a story here. Back in the day, before it used to be chaplaincy by committee, so you would have 20 priests helping out cover because there's a lot of games. I mean, basketball season might play 32, 33 games in a season. So we would just break it up. And what ended up happening is that there would be no issue signing someone up for Duke. Everyone wanted to do Duke. Mm-hmm. But invariably, some team, which I will not name, which is not as exciting to serve as chaplain for, was a harder sell. And so the decision was made to kind of focus it in on one person.
Right.
And I am a diehard hoops junkie, as you already mentioned. So this made a whole heck of a lot of sense. I can still remember Father Joe Carey, who is a priest in residence in Ryan Hall. He was at the time director of campus ministry. I'm sitting as rector of Keogh Hall in my chair watching Sports Center. It's the morning, just kind of easing into the day. Phone rings, Father Joe. And he says to me, "Pete, would you be willing to serve as the full-time chaplain for the men's basketball team?" And it's crystallized in my mind. I can see that moment. I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
When can I start? He's like, "Well, thanks for asking today." And that was pretty much the extent of it. So I've been in that role now for almost 10 plus years.
Oh, wow.
And I love it. And the things that I loved about it then, frankly, have changed to now. It's the relationships, man. Like I love the relationship. Like this summer, I did 2 basketball weddings. And there are very few contexts in which I'm one of the shortest people in the room, but for both of those weddings, that was in fact the case. And it's just, there's a brotherhood there and a connection. You get to meet their wives and their kids, and it's a great blessing. And so what I started with was I just love hoops, but I love people even more. And to be able to spend time hearing about their lives is just a great blessing for me.
Yeah. I have one more kind of more serious question,
Great.
But another kind of more lighthearted sports question, I guess. What's your score prediction for this weekend, and what's your record prediction for Notre Dame football this year?
Oh, man. Okay. Here's what I think. Tough game against Miami. Mm-hmm. But I actually think, as last season proved, a loss is not necessarily a bad thing. So on the road, in a tough environment, we lose a game with a brand new quarterback. Mm-hmm. I think they put a lot of film study in over the course of the past 2 weeks. I think the Irish come out and they win by 10.
All right.
This Mike Elko-led team, they're going to be great defensively, and they got a little chip on their shoulder from last year. So I think it's going to be a game until it isn't, and the Irish will pull out late by 10.
All right.
Overall record, I think we go 10-2 when it's all said and done.
Okay. Fair enough. One last question here. Obviously you're a priest. You spend lots of time in prayer, by yourself, I'm sure with others as well. How do you pray, and how should people pray?
Yeah. I'll answer the last question first. When it comes to prayer, we have to remember that our own style is one that works perfectly well for God. I think sometimes we have this expectation that I have to pray this way, has to look this way. It's not true. People are different, and they have different temperaments and perspectives. So I would say, if you're drawn to a particular style of prayer, journaling, contemplation, walking in nature, listening to music, whatever the case might be, like, lean into that. Make it a consistent habit. How do I pray? Because I spend so much of my time talking to people, which I love, by the way, because I'm a raging extrovert. My style of prayer is the exact opposite. So I love to go in the mornings into the Balmer Hall Chapel. I got my spot, and I just sit there. I like to sit there in the quiet. I like to look at the crucifix. And then what I usually do is I read the readings of the day. And I just let a particular word strike me or a phrase strike me that I then carry with me through the rest of the day. So today's was heartfelt compassion. What does it look like when I encounter every single person to have heartfelt compassion for them, for their situation? And it's one of those things that each and every day there's something, and I just carry that through the day.
Father Pete, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.